Welcome back to the Pumpkin Patch. I'm your host, James Moser, and welcome back to Days of Halloween. And unfortunately, welcome to the final Streaming Friday. Each Friday during October, we choose one streaming service, and we make all of our Days of Halloween selections from that particular one. We are moving into what many consider to be the greatest streaming service in the world for horror fans, Shudder. So ride with us here at the Fall Horsemen as we explore Shudder and see what's amazing to watch in October. Our selection for the Halloween classic of the day goes to the 2019 film, The Mortuary Collection. Clancy Brown plays a mortician who tells a bunch of spooky stories. I mean, I think we're done here, right? Let's wrap it up, boys. Come on, we're done. All right. That was an easy one. Our selection for the overlooked horror film of the day. Alright, even though that should be more than enough to make you want to watch the show, I guess I'll talk about it a little bit more. This particular film is an anthology movie where Clancy Brown plays Montgomery Dark. That's a pretty good bad guy name, by the way. Even though you'll have to watch it to see if he is in fact the bad guy, who runs the local mortuary in this small town of Raven's End. In walks Sam, who is chipper and happy and very, very enthusiastic about talking to Mr. Dark about possibly taking this job. But first, she has to get through the interview process, which consists of Mr. Dark explaining the backstories of all the dead people in town. I mean, that sounds terrible, but usually when you get an old white dude to give you an interview, it's usually just him talking about his politics and his golf game. So I think possibly Sam actually got a much easier, less scary interview than most people do. But the anthology comes from these particular backstories. And as the backstories continue, Mr. Dark may also have to realize Sam's not all that she appears to be either. Our selection for the overlooked horror film of the day goes to the 2020 film Scare Package. 2 straight picks from Shudder, 2 straight anthology films. But we went from a mortuary to a much, much scarier place. A place that we know from doing Days of Halloween, there is no return. It's a video rental store. There's no coming back from that. The film revolves around a central plot point of a new employee coming in to get a job at the place. That's 2 in a row. I don't think I realized what I was doing when I picked these movies. But these have a very similar story, but this particular film has more of a sense of humor. Scare Package is kind of touted as a horror satire written by horror fans for horror fans. In it, we see the anthology element brought to life through the shelves of the video store. Each one of the short films that are used in the anthology are titles on the actual video store shelves, which I thought was really clever. It's a really good film. I really think you guys might like this, especially if you're into that like nostalgia for like video stores, Blockbusters, or maybe you're just celebrating the fact that Blockbuster doesn't exist and you ain't got to pay back them late fees. Not like they were ever going to get those things from me. Screw you, Blockbuster! That's why you closed! And our first selection for the late night double feature picture show goes to Host. I told you guys the other day that being on Zoom was its own horror movie. Well, guess what? It literally is its own horror movie. Welcome to Host. Listed by many sites currently as the scariest film ever made. I don't necessarily believe that. I do think that Host is a very, very well-made movie. Scariest movie ever? Not quite. It's no Exorcist, but it's still pretty scary. Ultimately, the plot line revolves around a bunch of friends just kind of hanging out and having a happy hour on Zoom, and they decide, you know, it'd be a great idea. You know what we should do? Now the world's kind of going crazy. You know what we should do? We should have a seance, and we should try to summon some evil spirits. They hire a person to come in, try to help them through this process, and guess what? It works. I don't understand why people do this. Like, they freak out when the demon shows up. You were trying to summon a demon. What did you expect? You're just like, ha 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 ha, this'll never work. What if it does though? Don't try summoning evil dark things and then get upset when evil dark things show up. It's just that simple. Plus it's Zoom and that sucks. I hate Zoom. Our next selection for the late night double feature picture show goes to the summer of '84. You guys like Stranger Things? If you're into the vibes that Stranger Things puts out, then Summer of '84 might be a less supernatural version of that, and you might enjoy it. It's sort of like a combination of Stranger Things meets true crime, which I'm sure that made somebody out there happy when I said those two things. The film is set during the summer of '84. It's building up on a lot of children who have been disappearing over the years, and ultimately how a group of kids have kind of banded together and they're going to get to the bottom of what's going on and where these kids are. This film is a lot more mystery than the average film, so I do highly recommend that you check this out for yourself. It's sort of a hidden gem. It's very good. It's got a lot of really good high ratings online from like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and all of the other sites. I highly recommend that you give it a try. It's very dark, but it's very good. And it's got a little bit of that nostalgia that you kind of watch Stranger Things for. And our selection for the Halloween and other media goes to the 2019 documentary film In Search of Darkness. Look, Pumpkin Patch, I'm going to assume that if you've picked up Shudder, then you're probably a horror fan. I don't know why you got Shudder. Maybe it came with like a free subscription with a box of cereal? If so, let me know what cereal you eat. That's pretty awesome. In Search of Darkness is a documentary about horror for horror fans with horror people in it. It runs the entire range of horror celebrities in this. We're talking movie stars, we're talking directors, we're talking musicians, we're talking people that are in the industry, we're talking people who know horror, who have built horror over the years, talking horror for horror fans. And most importantly, this particular documentary focuses directly, not entirely, but pretty much directly on the 1980s and the horror boom that we had during that time. I can't honestly tell you much about it. It's a documentary about the rise of horror during the 80s and beyond. This documentary is so popular, in fact, that not only did they make an In Search of Darkness 2, they also are currently working on In Search of Darkness 3, and there was a spin-off for sci-fi. I don't know the name of that though, because I don't cover sci-fi, I cover horror. Google it. Do some work. Looking at you, Jonathan Wheatley, Christopher Jones. I highly recommend it. It's well-paced, it's well done, it's got a great production value, and on top of that, you are not hurting for horror celebrities. Name one. It's probably in there. We're talking everybody from Joe Dante to Lloyd Kaufman, from Heather Langenkamp to Barbara Crampton. We've got everyone in between. This particular documentary, if you're into horror, check this out. If you're into 80s horror, check this out. If you're into neither one of those things, I need you to check out and leave. You're well past your checkout time. That does it, Pumpkin Patch, for our final episode of Streaming Fridays for Days of Halloween 2021. We hope that you enjoyed this entire sub-series into the actual series. It's sort of like a series wrapped inside of another series, inside of like a crunchy burrito shell. Man, I'm hungry now. Ooh. Definitely go for some Chewies. Chewies is pretty good. Check them out too. That's just a freebie recommendation right there. We hope that you found some fun films that you didn't really know about in the streaming services. These things are getting more and more robust, so more and more films have a tendency to slip through the cracks. We've covered Netflix and Hulu, we've covered HBO Max. I don't know, we covered something else. What did we cover? Netflix, Hulu, Tubi, HBO Max, and now Shudder. Hopefully you found your new favorite movie. Hopefully you found something that just helped you pass the time and you enjoyed during spooky season. But hopefully you also enjoyed this episode and you're enjoying all of our episodes of Days of Halloween. If you have, please click or treat. It's where you like, share, subscribe, and you ring that notification bell. Also, you can stalk us on all the social media sites. But honestly, if all you ever do is watch these episodes, we love you, we thank you, and we hope you're having a fantastic spooky season, and we thank you for riding with the Fall Horsemen, where Halloween lives and fall is forever. One more time. Streaming Fridays. I had fun with that. A little tricky to say, mortuary. Clancy Brown. It just does not roll off the tongue. 2018. I'm not going to put that in. It sounds like you're drunk Sylvester Stallone. Did I hit record? Yeah. I did hit record. Okay. Awesome.